I'm going to talk a little bit about reverence. This is something that kind of builds on the idea of witnessing, which I talked about being something that's foundational to our existence as human beings, as we kind of exist in the world, and find ways to reinforce how we build our belief and how we allow our belief to kind of evolve. And that creates meaning, which um, almost provides reasoning for why we do what we do. So if you say, um, I am a 4-year-old boy and I'm at the park and there's a girl who I like. So I'm running around, I'm trying to catch her and we're playing tag. And after the fact, I realize I like how I feel after I run, even though my heart's beating really fast and I feel flushed. Now I'm wondering, I mean, kids don't have the language for this nor the emotional intelligence to put this all together kind of coherently as maybe I am as an adult. But this is basically an example of why we provide meaning and words and emotions to children from like very early on, so that we're allowing their brains to kind of make these connections and think, um, when I hear something and I see an expression and then I feel an emotion, what does that all mean? So our mind is subconsciously putting all this together. Babies may not look like they're grasping any of this, but they are. So let's go back to the scenario of this child running in the park or running on the field uh, in the field at a school playground. All of these things put together have so many elements of emotion to them. It's I'm building a new friend. I'm understanding a bit of attraction. I'm learning maybe some of the love and intimacy and kind of compassion I see between my parents. So what is it to be a boy? What is it to be a girl? Um, and all of these things put together as we evolve with time almost reinforce that feeling, that warm feeling that we have inside. And sometimes we don't know how to describe what it is. Some people explain it as joy, some as this feeling of gratitude, this almost validating feeling of life, which is like, life is good, you know, and being able to recall these moments is very important when we are in times of distress and when we're having difficulties understanding are things not making sense, why are things not aligning in a certain way. Like I'm trying everything I can in my power, and for some reason I'm in this rut, and like for how long am I supposed to be patient before I decide, you know, like what like how drastic does my change have to be? So to give an example of this, sometimes people have a difficult time wondering what is it that my brain needs as like a stimulus. So what is it that's going to almost activate a sense of wakefulness in my brain to keep it from being bored? So I don't know very much about abnormal psychology, but why is it, for example, that some people turn to um, something that elicits a kind of emotion in them that is a different kind of high than joy? So I don't know very much about sociopaths and what psychopaths are, but the idea of having a conscious, sometimes people question, like if you read um like if you're studying criminology, for example, and you read of all these case studies and you want to know, like, I can't know how to relate to somebody who's been through this and why they what the rationale would be. And it's almost its own answer, like how would you, because these are usually people who have gone through uh, immense or very very extreme cycles of trauma, where they're literally trying to shut down because they've experienced so much pain that it's too painful to feel, and so they're trying to almost ignore that part of themselves. So there's this narration where a person, when he died, when he was on his deathbed, he asked his kids to burn his body. Like, when I die, I want you to cremate me. So when he died, that did end up happening. And the narration says that God asked him after he died, "Why did you ask that of your children?" And so he replied, "I had done so much wrong in the world that I wanted to hide from you. Like I had no way of legitimating what my actions were. And I was hoping that in being dispersed, I wouldn't be able to be recollected again, or like kind of put back together, that I'd have to explain myself and be in this position." And so for that, God forgave him. So it almost shows the fact that that is basically the essence of life. It is to have that sort of understanding that within us there's this undying hope. Like we are sentient and we do have that consciousness in us, and we're almost looking to be validated. And sometimes circumstances and sometimes societal situations are such that we people don't know how to, or they don't see the full part of us that we're struggling with, or what our daily struggles are, or what the responsibilities we have are. So I'm thinking of creating a new playlist where we kind of talk about the different experiences in life that kind of bring those moments of reverence or witnessing, and how to capitalize on them. Because believe it or not, they're in everyday scenarios, but we just maybe don't know how to recognize them as such. So, for example, when things align that, let me see, something that just happened to me recently, where, you could have been walking to get to your car, for example, in a parking lot, and maybe it's a little bit dim. And oh, actually, this did happen to me. This was years ago. I was going to have coffee with a bunch of friends, and I think it was the night of New Year's. So everything was already kind of quiet. And we had intended to meet at one coffee shop, but then it ended up being closed. So we went to another one that's known to be open in spite of like whether or not it's a holiday. So I went into the first parking lot where we had originally meant to meet, and I came within like inches of driving right into a lamppost in the parking lot, but the light had burnt out, and I couldn't even believe it. I was like within inches of missing it, and then I have to go back to school. It was actually between semesters, and I was planning on going back to school, I think, like within a few days. So you can imagine what scenario that would have kind of unfolded to become. Like, you're starting a scenario of school and you're already stressed, and then you're like, oh my gosh, now I have this mountain of debt that on top of like what I'm already trying to continue like minimizing because of tuition, and then how am I even supposed to get to where I'm going because it's like 9 or 10 hours away. So things like this, where there are these near misses of tragedy, are moments where we tend to do that anyway. We're just like, oh my gosh, thank goodness. And then you almost think like, I can't even believe what would happen. And if we go back to these moments of reverence where we feel, instead of saying, I'm glad things aren't worse than they are, it's almost like, what is this telling me? Or how do I capitalize on this then? And what analogy can I draw in the world that kind of mimics this feeling, that helps me understand the universe? So in this way, we're allowing these moments to be captured in a more permanent way in our mind, in our memory. And that's what builds faith. And it makes it more entrenched in our way of thinking and our worldview, where it doesn't always have to be in the words of like common terminology as religion or God, or like what's permissible, and these words that have kind of lost meaning because they've been so overused and we don't even know what they necessarily mean anymore. So this is something, because I know oftentimes when I'm reading scripture, or if I'm listening to a song, I'll sometimes screenshot the song or the scripture, like I'll highlight it, and I'll almost want to write something to kind of capture what I was thinking and why that specific verse relates to the emotion and how it reinforces it in some way. But then in my mind, I might not have the time, and then I'll think to myself like, no, I'll remember. And then not even like 2 days later, I'll look at it, I'm like, wow, what was this again? Like, why did this resonate? And it's almost like this missed opportunity, and I'm like, I wish I had known, but if you understand that sometimes maybe that's what it's meant to be, like life and these meanings are almost meant to be almost like snippets, or like these fleeting moments to help us in maybe a time of distress, to help us remember that if I didn't captivate this meaning or capture it at that time, I know that I can look forward to it and it will continue to come and find me in some way or another. So again, I know I started a playlist that kind of was going to start talking about some of the attributes of God. I still feel kind of like on the fence about how to almost incorporate them into an understanding that looks somewhat ambivalent to any particular theology, as it were, because theology just means the study of God. But I read a post just a few minutes ago that talked about something about if someone says they love God, what would your reaction be? And so my immediate reaction was, I don't know if that's the question. I think it's, tell me what your construct of God is, and I can tell you what mine is. And then we can try to understand what we mean by that. but in the end, the universe is the universe. Like we're all under the same sky, as it were, in the same galaxy. So that's not necessarily the concern, as it were. So, but it is a concern, which is why I'm kind of debating how to almost approach this subject, because it is really big. So, any ideas about how to keep reverence and the sense of witnessing in life, I think is maybe what I'm looking for. And I'd love to hear feedback about what people think. And maybe just share those, like even on Facebook, if you're just doing it, you don't necessarily have to respond to this, but moments where it becomes kind of like a meme almost, but it's in a kind of fun, playful way. Like sometimes they'll say point of view, and then um, it tends to be a question that's like matched with a picture, and then people are almost asking for like lateral thinking, like what would you think about this? But if you think of it in terms of reverence or witnessing, it's like what does this reinforce for you in regards to, and then think of like any life difficulty, and then how that reverence can help you through that difficulty. So it's almost like it is almost kind of like a mind puzzle. One thing I was doing when I was at Carleton was I don't know if they still have this program, but it was called, I think, Luminosity, where they would allow these segments of time for you to take a break. So you download this app, and then whenever you want to take a break from whatever your routine of the day is, you can do these almost cognitive or cerebral exercises, and they're very entertaining, but they help almost get your mind practicing how to think in logical ways. And sometimes they're constructed in very frustrating ways, so that it's almost meant to help you not give up. So things like that, where it's actual, like that you're taking a break, but it's still cerebral work. You can kind of wonder, like, how would I want to integrate that in my life if I already know my attention span's very limited, but I'm looking for something that's going to be kind of entertaining, as well as helping me with if I have like attention deficit disorder or anything like that. On that note, I did just find someone had uploaded on YouTube a playlist, or like a song, like a very long one. It was just like 2 hours long of just continuous music for people who have that kind of that struggle, I guess. So all these really neat tweaks that we can have, like kind of like life hacks almost, where certain sounds can help our brain kind of relax and not relax too much to put us to sleep, or maybe help us sleep so that we can learn how to like maybe slow down our brain activity a little bit without relying always on pharmaceuticals. Is a good idea. So anyway, all these little tips and tricks I think are helpful on the way, and we'll see how this new playlist kind of evolves.